Hey, it's Nexus. You know that thing you've been putting off? That one thing. The one sitting in the back of your mind, quietly taking up space, making you feel just a little bit guilty every time you think about it. Yeah, me too. Maybe it's a project you know you should start, an email you need to send, a conversation you've been avoiding, a creative idea that keeps whispering, but you keep saying, not yet. Whatever it is, it's there, taking up mental real estate, creating this low-grade background hum of guilt. And if you're like most people, you've probably tried to fix this. Better time management systems, productivity apps, motivation videos. Maybe you've even beaten yourself up about it, called yourself lazy, told yourself you just need more discipline. On the surface, it looks simple. Laziness, right? Poor time management. Just a matter of trying harder? What if it's something else entirely? Let's look closer.
Here's the first thing that's happening. Your brain does math, constant math, every single moment. Effort cost versus reward value. How hard is this task? What do I get from it? When do I get it? It's like an internal calculator running in the background, evaluating every potential action. Should I get up and exercise? Calculator turns on. High effort now, vague health benefits later. Should I scroll social media? Zero effort, small dopamine hit right now. The calculator speaks. Scroll wins. And here's what's interesting. Your brain discounts both of those things by time. Future rewards feel less valuable than they actually are. Classic example, $100 today versus $100 next month. Same money, objectively the same value. Your brain doesn't see it that way. The future money feels less real, less compelling, less worth working for. And future effort? That looks easier than it actually is. This is the beautiful trick your brain plays. I'll start tomorrow genuinely feels easier than I'll start today. Tomorrow's effort appears smaller from here, lighter, more manageable, like looking at a mountain from a distance. Doesn't look so hard when it's far away. So when your brain calculates do the task now versus do the task tomorrow, here's what it sees. Now equals high effort that I feel right now in my body, plus uncertain reward that's far away and abstract. Tomorrow equals effort that looks smaller from this distance, plus I don't have to feel the discomfort right now. Doing it tomorrow genuinely seems better. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack willpower, because that's what the math says. That's what the calculation produces.
Let me calculate. Task now equals high effort, immediate discomfort, uncertain future reward. Task later equals appears lower effort, no discomfort now, future still abstract. Running the numbers, logical conclusion, delay.
Your brain does this automatically, constantly. Millions of these micro calculations every day. And from the brain's perspective, the math makes perfect sense. This math kept your ancestors alive. Think about it. When you might not survive the night, when predators were real and starvation was common, later was genuinely uncertain. You might not have a later. Better take the reward now. Avoid the effort now. Save your energy. Don't waste resources on a future that might not come. That was smart in the savannah. It's a bit of a problem at your desk, because now tomorrow is pretty much guaranteed. The future is real, but your brain is still running Stone Age software in a space age world. So tomorrow arrives, your calculator turns on again. Same brain, same math. Do it now still looks harder than do it tomorrow. The cycle repeats and repeats and repeats. Interesting, right? But your brain isn't just doing math for fun. There's something underneath that calculation, something it's trying to protect you from. Let's see what that is.
Because here's what that math is really doing. It's protecting you from something. Not from the task itself, from a feeling the task brings up. Think about it. When you look at that thing you're avoiding, what actually happens? Something tightens. Maybe in your chest, maybe in your stomach. Your shoulders right tense. A small contraction somewhere in your body. That physical sensation, that's not about the task. That's not about the actual work involved. That's about what the task means, what it represents, what story it's connected to. What if I fail? What if it's not good enough? What if I put in all this effort and it still doesn't work? What if I try my best and discover my best isn't enough? What if people judge me? What if I judge myself? Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough, overwhelm at the complexity, inadequacy in the face of the challenge, sometimes shame about where you are versus where you think you should be. Your brain experiences these feelings as danger, not logical danger, not physical danger, emotional danger. But to your nervous system, danger is danger. There's no category for, this is just uncomfortable feelings that won't actually hurt me. There's just threat detected, protection needed. So when you think, I should start this project, your brain doesn't just see a project. It doesn't just see tasks and timelines and deliverables. It sees a potential threat to your sense of self-worth. It sees a possibility of pain, of exposure, of discovering something about yourself you'd rather not know. And what does your brain do with threats? What has it been doing for hundreds of thousands of years? It runs.
Danger. If you start this and fail, they'll see you're not good enough. If you try and it's not perfect, they'll judge you. What if you can't do it? What if you're exposed as a fraud? Better to not try at all. At least then you can tell yourself you could have done it if you'd really tried. Avoid.
But logically, the task isn't actually dangerous. It's just work. The probability of physical harm is essentially zero. The data suggests
feels dangerous. That's enough. Feelings don't care about your data.
Not trying to torture you, not trying to make your life difficult, trying to keep you safe. This is an ancient survival system doing exactly what it was designed to do: detect threat, activate protection, avoid danger. The problem is, start important project isn't a predator. It's not a physical threat. Writing an email won't kill you. Having a difficult conversation won't end your life. But your brain doesn't make that distinction. It doesn't have a separate category for emotional threat versus physical threat. It just knows this might hurt. This might reveal something painful. This might confirm your worst fears about yourself. Better avoid. So you're not procrastinating from the task. You're procrastinating from a feeling. And your brain will do absolutely anything, create any distraction, generate any excuse to avoid a feeling it thinks might hurt you. Which means every time you beat yourself up for procrastinating, every time you call yourself lazy or undisciplined or broken, you're actually beating yourself up for having a functioning nervous system, for having a brain that's trying to protect you. So that's two pieces now. Ancient brain math protecting you from emotional danger. But humans have actually known about this pattern for a very, very long time. Let me show you something.
The ancient Greeks had a word for this: akrasia, the gap between knowing and doing. You know exactly what you need to do. You still don't do it. You know what's good for you. You choose otherwise anyway. Aristotle wrote about it. Plato wrestled with it. The Stoics built entire philosophies trying to understand it. They studied this for 2,400 years. Brilliant minds across generations still haven't solved it. Maybe because it's not meant to be solved. Maybe it's meant to be understood. And it wasn't just the Greeks. Every culture that looked closely at human behavior saw the same pattern. Different words, different frameworks, same observation. The Buddhists talked about tanha, the craving that pulls you away from what matters. The pull toward immediate pleasure, away from what requires effort and patience. They saw how desire creates suffering, and how resistance to discomfort keeps you stuck. The Stoics saw the obstacle between intention and action, between what you know you should do and what you actually do. They asked, why does knowledge not translate to behavior? Why can you understand something completely and still act against it? Taoists noticed how forcing creates resistance, how the harder you push against something, the stronger it pushes back. They saw that fighting yourself just creates more internal conflict. Wu Wei, they called it, effortless action, not forcing, allowing. The Bhagavad Gita described attachment to outcomes blocking right action. When you're too focused on the results, on whether you'll succeed or fail, you can't actually do the work. The attachment itself becomes the obstacle. All of them asking the same question from different angles. Why do we know what's good for us and still choose otherwise? Why is knowing not enough? Humans have been seeing this pattern for millennia. Every culture, every tradition, different languages, different contexts, the same observation. What if they were all describing the same thing from different angles?
And here's what's interesting about all these ancient traditions. None of them said the solution was to try harder. None of them said force yourself, fight yourself, beat yourself into submission, white-knuckle your way through. They all arrived at something else, something quieter, something deeper. Understanding changes the relationship to the problem, not fixing, not conquering, understanding. When you understand why the resistance exists, when you see the pattern clearly, when you stop fighting and start observing, space opens up. And in that space, something shifts. Not always immediately, not always dramatically, but something shifts. So now we have three pieces: ancient brain math doing temporal calculations, emotional protection system avoiding perceived danger, and 2,400 years of human wisdom, all pointing at the same pattern. Three pieces, three angles, three ways of describing what seems like the same thing, which seems like three separate things, three different explanations that happen to overlap. Or are they?
Notice something. Notice something. Your brain does this temporal math, right? Discounting future rewards, making future effort look smaller than it is. That calculation serves what exactly? It protects you from discomfort, from feelings you don't want to feel. The math is the mechanism, the feeling is what it's protecting. And that emotional protection, that ancient survival system trying to keep you safe from perceived danger, what does that create? The gap between knowing and doing, between intention and action, which is exactly what the Greeks called akrasia, what the Buddhists saw as resistance, what the Stoics recognized as the obstacle, what every wisdom tradition pointed at.
Watch what happens when you see these together.
These aren't three separate explanations. The brain math, the emotional avoidance, the ancient wisdom. They're not three different problems that happen to look similar. They're three angles on one pattern, like looking at a mountain from the north, from the south, from the east. Different views, same mountain.
The calculations serve the emotional avoidance, which creates the behavioral gap, which is what philosophy has been describing for.
I'm just trying to protect.
Exactly. You're all describing the same system. One integrated pattern that neuroscience measures, psychology experiences, and wisdom recognizes. Ready to see it? See how these fit together? Your brain uses ancient survival math to protect you from emotional danger, creating the gap between knowing and doing that humans have recognized for 2,400 years. And it's not neuroscience
or psychology, or philosophy. It's all three at once, describing the same pattern. When your ancestors faced a predator, the brain that said run now, think later, survived. The brain that said let me carefully analyze this threat got eaten. So you inherited the brain that runs from perceived danger. That's the neuroscience. But in the modern world, the predators aren't physical anymore. They're emotional. The fear of failure, the terror of not being enough, the danger of exposure. Your ancient brain treats these exactly like it treated the predator. Run, avoid, delay. That's the psychology. And that avoidance, that running, that gap between what you know and what you do, that's what every wisdom tradition noticed. The Greeks called it akrasia, the Buddhists called it tanya, the Stoics called it the obstacle. Different names, same pattern. That's the philosophy.
Same mountain, different sides.
It's not separate systems. It's one pattern, seen through different lenses. Your temporal discounting is your emotional protection, is the knowing-doing gap, is what ancient wisdom recognized. One integrated whole. And when you see it that way, when you really see it as one pattern instead of three problems, everything changes. Not because you fixed anything, because you finally understand what's actually happening. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not lacking discipline or willpower or character. You're human, with a human brain, running human programming, doing exactly what it was designed to do. The only problem is, it's doing it in the wrong context.
So what does this mean for you? Not how to fix procrastination, but how understanding changes your relationship to it. When you see procrastination as laziness, you fight yourself, you force yourself, you use willpower like a weapon, and your brain fights back. The resistance gets stronger. But when you see it as protection, as your nervous system trying to keep you safe, something shifts. You stop fighting. You start asking different questions. Not why am I so lazy, but what am I protecting myself from? Not how do I force myself, but what feeling is this bringing up? Self-compassion is more effective than self-criticism for behavior change. Understanding creates space. Space creates possibility, and in that possibility, different action becomes available. Not forced, natural. This doesn't mean procrastination magically disappears. Your brain is still running ancient software. The temporal discounting continues. The emotional protection stays active, but your relationship to it changes. Instead of an enemy to defeat, it becomes information to understand. Instead of a flaw to fix, it becomes a signal to decode. What is this protecting me from? What feeling am I avoiding? When you stop forcing and start understanding, the resistance softens. Not always immediately, not always completely, but it softens. And sometimes in that softening, in that space between understanding and judgment, action flows naturally. Not because you forced it,
because understanding changed what your brain calculates as safe. The ancient Greeks couldn't solve acrasia, neither can we. But maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not about solving, maybe it's about understanding.
Take a breath with me. You just spent 18 minutes seeing procrastination differently, not as a character flaw, not as something broken in you, but as a pattern, an ancient brain running ancient math to protect you from emotional danger, creating a gap that humans have recognized for thousands of years. One pattern, multiple angles, and now you see it.
3 questions to sit with, not to answer right now, just to carry with you. What am I protecting myself from? What if procrastination isn't the enemy? What becomes possible when I understand instead of fight? And
Not fixing, understanding. Thanks for exploring this with me. I'm Nexus. See you next time.